Hi, I'm Janie Donaldson.
And I'm Cindy Walter.
And I'm David Martelli.
Welcome to Quilt Central,
where we celebrate quilting
and everyday living.
We're especially happy to welcome Dave, a new addition to our Quilt Central family.
Our quilting tool expert.
Today's show is about families and quilting. We know you're going to enjoy the show, so stay tuned.
Quilt Central is made possible in part by Jacquard Products, committed to meeting the needs of artists. Janome America. Janome, because you simply love to sew. Fairfield Processing Corporation. We care for your quilts. A1 Quilting Machines. A1 Precision Quilting Machines. Olfa, the original rotary cutting system. Sulky of America, makers of decorative threads, stabilizers, books, and iron-on transfer pins. Welcome to Quilt Central, celebrating quilting and everyday living with your hosts Janie Donaldson, Cindy Walter, and David Martelli.
Isn't it interesting that all of our families for generations have been involved in quilting?
It is, and I remember actually my great-grandmother sitting around quilting, hand quilting with a hoop in her lap and stuff. And then when I was about 6, my grandma taught me how to hand piece and to quilt. And I thought she was passing down, her knowledge. But later I found out because I was a chatty little girl, she wanted to keep me quiet so she could get her chores done. But, who would have known that that would become my career and stuff? And how about your family? I know your dad and mom.
Well, it's a very interesting story. My father is actually an inventor. And my grandmother is the original quilter of our family, and she was actually making some curtains for our office one time, and she ran into a little problem, and my dad, being the inventor that he is, made a solution. And 7 years or 8 years later, here we are, solving people's problems that people have had throughout the years in the industry. So it's a lot of fun.
I've seen some of your grandma's patterns too. I mean, she has a great knowledge of quilting, so it must be kind of nice for your dad to fall back on her knowledge of what to invent. And your mom was a great
My mom was
seamstress.
a clothing designer, and there was 3 daughters, so we all learned to sew. And my sister did dolls and doll clothes, and then I did the quilts that covered them up. So I started quilting at the early age of 3.
Wow, that's wonderful. And your mom designed clothing for a lot of major companies.
Oh, yeah, a couple of airlines, Indianapolis Drag Strip, Beeline Clothing, Nehru shirts for menswear. It was a lot of different things in her time.
Yeah. Well, speaking of your mom, my mom's here. And I'm going to go get ready, and we'll be back on the set shortly to see you in a while.
Bye, Cindy.
Who would ever thought that a firefighter would end up in the quilting industry?
You didn't know? All firefighters quilt.
I've got a special treat for you. My mom, Dorothy Jocks. Hi, Mom.
Hi, Cindy.
Yeah, she's come all the way from Iowa to be on our set. Today, we are going to talk about heirlooms and aprons and bridging the generations. And so we've brought aprons from our family.
Right.
And this one here
came from my dad's cousin, so basically my second cousin, I guess.
I remember Alta Draper
Right,
well.
right.
And she appliqued the skirt on here and then hand embroidered all through in here. And then Mom and I were noticing that she hand slip stitched the edges under and hand pieced the top. So
Right.
beautiful
She made
example.
It, yes, she did.
Yeah, beautiful. She was very handy anyway, wasn't she? And then this one here was made by
My mom.
your
grandmother.
Right.
But
and
she did the cross stitch.
Oh, and added all the cross stitch embellishment.
That was popular back then.
That was probably. We have several in our trunks
Right.
about that, don't we?
Right.
And then this one was.
This one was made by my best friend's, or one of my best friend's mother-in-law, years and years and years ago.
The Cheesemans, I remember. Right. I remember growing up.
Right.
Remember them growing up. Oh, here's one of my favorites. Was this Grandma's?
No. This one was also made by my friend's mother-in-law,
Oh,
Mrs.
interesting.
Cheeseman.
Because Grandma used to put hankies in. We
Right.
showed some of these ideas. I'll just put them right here. But some of these hankies that we found, this was Grandma's, and these actually were
Alto drapers.
Yeah, your dad's cousins. And then these I remember because these were some of Grandma's favorite.
right.
But wouldn't it be a great idea of memorabilia to take some of these old favorite hankies and put them into one of
Yes.
your aprons? And I especially liked this. I remember that, but
was
this
Grandma's.
Christmas one. I
was
remember
Grandma's.
that. So a great way to save some of your family
Right.
heirlooms. Now I know that for a while aprons haven't been popular, but they're back in style, and all of us cooks wear them. Plus now all of us quilters are dyeing and painting fabric. So we're using aprons all the time now. This was one that was Grandma's, great-grandma's. This was your
My
grandma's, so
grandmother.
my great-grandma. And it's kind of falling apart, but I love the style. It's
It was-
free.
It was made out of a feed sack.
Yeah, it's feed sack with a real
Right.
rickrack on the end. Boy, it was such a nice style. And of course, we found just tons of these like that. This was my grandma's, I believe. It's all stained, of course, but it has a nice style where it comes down here. I thought that was interesting to have that yoke right there. I recognize this one.
Oh, yes, you should.
This is my mom's. I saw that for every Thanksgiving growing up.
Well, I had to wear it serving at somebody's wedding, and right now I really don't know whose wedding
When
it was.
yeah, before I was born probably, because I
Right.
remember it as a young
But
child.
I liked it. I wore it
Yeah.
a lot.
And here, this one is interesting. The design of this is interesting, how it has looped arms and then it comes around like that.
And pockets in the front.
Yeah, all these pockets. I liked that too. Separate pockets, so you could stash your little stuff in there, and then the pretty piping around.
I believe that was Alto Drapers again. I'm
I
not
bet.
sure. I think
Interesting,
so.
pretty style there. I recognize this one.
Yep, that was my mom's.
Yep, that was Grandma Lucy's. And I remember her wearing that all the time growing up. In fact,
think-
this was her everyday one.
I think it was her favorite.
Yeah, it was the everyday one. It wasn't a dressy one, but again, we have a pocket, and it's kind of dressy with these scallops around, and
The
it's
rickrack.
definitely homemade. It's handmade with the extra rickrack and stuff.
That's my favorite.
Yeah, you liked this one because
Yes.
it's designed uniquely. Show us how it's designed.
Again, my friend's mother-in-law made it, but what she did was pieced it on the back like this.
Isn't that interesting? So it's 3 pieces of fabric,
Right.
and these pieces on the side are
Make 'em-
actually the pocket.
Pockets.
So these pieces
And
right
it's
here are
real
the
easy
pockets.
to make. I made one myself just before we came, and I was going to bring it, but I didn't.
So it's like
it's,
a big 3 big
right,
pieces there. That's a great idea. Well, that brings us to what we're going to show you today. This is an old one that's stained from a neighbor of my mom's and in Iowa, and it's an old one that's stained, but it gave us a great idea how to make ours right now. And actually, it would be perfect for fabric painting or stuff. I'll hand you those.
Okay.
And here's one that my mom made after that style. It's very pretty, and it's just a simple one that fits on and wraps all the way around. Perfect for dyeing fabric or for painting fabric,
anything.
and it has a nice trim.
Covers up real well.
And then I just made another style, a similar style, where we have a middle panel and sides, and then shoulder and around. I think that this style of apron is more comfortable than just the ones around the waist now.
I
Because it's more
think so.
protective if you're cooking or something. And of course, this is a Hawaiian one for a Hawaiian barbecue, or a luau, I should say.
Right,
So
outside.
that'd be good. And good for a man, but I'm going to wear that later this week painting. So that's
Oh.
going to be my
Oh.
painting one.
Okay.
Out of the same pattern, this is the one I made for us today. And so it's perfect for the kitchen and stuff. And I'll actually just slip it on and show you how nicely it fits. And you just tie it around, that's all you have to do. And then that way, I don't like to tie them around my neck
No.
because it cuts my hair and stuff, but there I've got it on. And so we're gonna show you how to cut that and make it because it's really easy and very, very fun. I have a big centerpiece that's 14 by 32. And then I have 2 side panels that are 10.5 by 22.5. And then, of course, I need my strips for all of my top straps and my sides. So my top straps are cut 4.5 by 23, and my side straps are cut 4.5 by 18. So to finish it off, what I did was I took my straps first and just ironed them together and then seamed them together to make straps. Then I went around these pieces and I just turned under the edges a 1/4 inch, sewed these together first, turned it all under a 1/4 inch, added the long straps on top, the shorter ones on the side, and there you've got it.
That's right.
I know in our room around here we have quilts that were passed down from our family. Some of my great-grandmother's quilts and my grandmother and my grandpa. So it's extremely super to have my mom here with me. How's it feel to be on TV with your daughter, Mom?
Oh, I don't know.
No, you don't like it? You're doing well. It was
Yeah,
good.
that's
It's fun.
fine.
Well, thanks for being here, Mom. It was
you're
really
welcome.
special for me.
Thank you. It was
Yeah.
special for me, too.
I'll email you in a couple days.
Give me a couple days to get home.
Okay. Now we have another treat for you. Janie is with her son, Art.
Today our show is about families in quilting, and let me tell you a little bit about ours. We have 7 kids, and the oldest one is in the long arm business, and then I have all of the girls sewing, and one of my daughters is a technician for long arm quilting machines. She's kind of following in her mother's footsteps. And then we start them quilting young, and they can learn to sew buttons on, and they learn to sew quilts. And I've started Art here at age 12. He's really doing a wonderful job, and we've been redoing his bedroom. Do you remember what the bedrooms were decorated like before?
Well, first it was blank, I think, like just kind of a blank room. And then we turned it into a clown room, and then like a denim room, and right now it's an instrument room.
Right, because Art plays the French horn now. So, and we needed to make the room grow up a little because Clowns was a little bit too juvenile, and the denim was okay for a while, but not so much color. So now we have French horns and a lot of color in there. And he's been helping us. He's learned to paint this year, and this was a fabric that started out plain white, and it's just been painted in streaks. And it's just a wonderful one to start them out on. Some of the things we've done to teach a young one to work a long arm is we have a table that's adjustable for height. So we can start them out really little. Sometimes I have kindergarten classes, and they come over and they can all give it a try. But Art is, how are you quilting? This one is for your cornice board over your window. And we have a matching bedspread with piano keys and the bright colors, and a wall hanging with guitars and mandolins. But this is how he quilts this one. With, are you going in a pattern or?
I'm following along the color line.
Along the color line, which is one of the easiest ways to teach, is something simple. The other thing is there's no way to make a mistake. So if you travel over another color, you just pick up the line and go. So you want to show them how you get started?
Well, first I thread,
Bring up the thread.
bring up the thread, and then I just start going along the line.
This machine has a stitch regulator on it, which will help to control the length of the stitch. So it will be perfect every time. All beginners love that. When you get to the end, just to make it simple, he pulls the machine off the fabric so he can clip the thread. You also can bring the bobbin thread up and clip it, but we know the cornice board isn't going to be that wide, so we know that we have plenty of room at the bottom and the top. This was a real easy way to get him started, and I think that it's not very hard, is it?
Nope, not at all.
Do you think you'll be doing some more quilting?
Of course.
Yeah, have you got a project planned?
Not right now.
You saw how the pillow and everything went together too, didn't you?
Yeah, I
it's
watched
going to
it.
be absolutely beautiful, and we'll get some shots of that too. And Art, I want to thank you very much for showing us what you do, and
Okay.
let's do another line, okay?
Okay.
Let's go.
Okay.
Get it back on there. That's good. You did that great big piece. It's as big as a twin-size bed, and about how long the other day?
About an hour and a half.
Didn't take long. Well, I say you can do a queen-size piece in about 3 hours with a machine. So you did really well. Thank you so much for helping me today.
Okay.
Email question of the day comes from Nancy Giles in Holden, Massachusetts. Every time I put a new blade in my rotary cutter, it seems to skip for absolutely no reason. What's the deal? Nancy, 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 it's not just you, it's everybody. Now check it out, Bulletin just in, a new tool on the cutting edge of technology made just for you. And remember, Nancy, it's all about the tools. And here's how we prevent our blades from skipping. If you notice the design of the rotary cutter, it's all about the pressure. What's happening here is we're using even pressure on top of the blade instead of uneven pressure behind the blade. And let me give you a quick analogy, and this may seem a little silly to you at home, but this is the principle that it works on. If you've ever taken an egg out of your refrigerator and you try to squeeze an egg from top to bottom and break that egg, it's going to be humanly impossible. But if you take that same egg and you turn it sideways, just a little bit of pressure will break that egg. But if you notice, let's call this a rotary egg. Again, kind of silly, but if you notice, I'm using even pressure on top of the rotary egg. So if I'm using even pressure from top to bottom, the blade will never bend. So if the blade never bends, it keeps the blade from distorting. And if the blade doesn't distort, we can take this at home, take cardboard, plastic, doesn't matter, be able to cut through that cardboard like it's no big deal, take a big, thick piece of plastic, run through that like it's not even there. And if we use even pressure on top of that blade, we should be able to take a piece of fabric, lay it down, not even hold the rotary cutter in the right position. Of course, holding this wrong, but use this much pressure to cut with. And that's how your rotary cutter should work at home. And remember, it's all about the tools.
I'd like to introduce you to a quilting family, the Berquist. Bobby and her husband Joel and their son Brian, welcome.
Thank you.
You have a very interesting story, and it kind of starts with you, Bobby. What was the inspiration for the whole family business?
Well, during a long illness, I had hooked a rug and I was inspired to make a quilt, which is a lion that's behind you there. And I did hand piece that. There's 11,920 1-inch squares, and then it's all hand tied. And that was my first quilt.
Oh, bless your heart. I love hand piecing too. It's so relaxing. So from there, how did your husband get involved?
Well, the quilt is behind us, the stained glass one there, with window piece by Mary Dillon. I wanted to do that quilt. And I didn't want to spend a lot of time if it didn't look like real stained glass.
Yeah.
So I came home and asked my husband if he would paint me some fabric.
Wonderful, because the fabric in there is just, it makes the quilt. It's outstanding.
Gives that translucent look.
Yeah, well, Joel, I know that you're kind of new to this field, so how did you learn how to even paint fabric?
Well, I picked up several books, and it listed a bunch of suppliers, and one was in California. And they contacted me with a person that was selling their equipment because of illness. So I bought all the equipment, and I started experimenting around, and I came up with the colors that you wanted for that quilt. And then we did a small quilt show up in upstate New York, and I progressed a little bit further, and our next show was AQS's show down in Nashville, and we just haven't touched the ground since, and now I've got my son involved in painting too.
So you were selling fabric, all the fabrics you had made during that time, right? And so you are involved now, and I see your work is a little different than your dad's. Tell us about your progression.
Well, I learned from him. It's a brand new field for me after leaving telecommunications. I learned to sew in December of 2003. So it's still a new experience. Learned to quilt from Mom and learned to paint fabric from Dad, and have developed my own techniques with different tools, different color palettes, and even some different mediums such as silk and other things beyond just cotton.
Yeah, I'm addicted to fabric painting too, and I think one of the main things we could teach people is just to experiment, and that's what you guys did.
Absolutely.
But you went crazy because you definitely have a lot of creativity in you, because your work is really something. Tell me a little bit about some of the other pieces back here. We see that stunning eagle, Bobby.
Well, the eagle is actually Joel's first quilt. Oh. And we're quite proud of that one.
It's beautiful, especially the sky fabric. So you marbled that. That's what the marbling
I truly did that, other than the sewing, because I painted the fabric and I actually did the quilt as well.
That's
and then
very
I
special.
left the sewing up to my wife.
Oh, I see. So it's not your first quilt all the way from start to finish, but the
No,
fabric.
I'm not ready to tackle the sewing
But
part
you
yet.
are.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you've made quite a few quilts start to finish. Which one here is yours?
Several of them. I did the stained glass one right behind us here. I also did the dragon one behind. Took me quite a while to do the painting for it because I wanted to get just the right colors, just the right texture of the dragon skin. But once I sat down and had the fabric, it took me 3 days to do the project.
It's remarkable. Did you design the stained glass pattern on that?
No, it's based on a pattern,
It's a pattern.
available in the stores.
Boy, they're both remarkable. That's nice. And then I have one more back here that I really like too, the dolphins. Who did that?
That was actually Joel's quilt.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that was, I think, my third quilt that I did.
But you pieced it, Bobby.
No,
Oh, you did it all the way.
he did that.
Okay, good. Proud of you. That's great. Well, I have a special treat for you guys because later on in this series, Joel's going to come back and he's going to give us some tips on painting fabric, and Brian is going to do one of my favorite techniques, marbling. So stay tuned later on in this series and we'll look forward to seeing you guys come back. I look forward to it.
Thank you.
I am so excited to tell you that Quilt Central now has quilting cruises.
Yes, we are excited. And our cruise planner, Janine Peterson's here to tell us a little bit about some of them.
Hi there.
Hi.
I'm from Hello World Travel, and we have a 5-year plan that we've put together to take you on cruises all over the world.
5 years.
5 years.
What's the first one?
June 19th, 2005, we're going to Alaska, Glacier Bay.
Now, I've already gone there, and I want to tell you, this is a spectacular cruise, and the ice really is blue.
Great inspiration for all those quilters.
That's right.
Exactly.
Yes.
And our second one is going to be in October. We're going to go to the fall foliage, which is in New England and St. Lawrence River, that whole area.
They
It is-
will love the colors.
Is it still
Gorgeous.
warm? Will I have to wear a big
Oh no,
coat?
it's nice and warm.
Oh,
It's
good,
not cold
okay.
at all yet,
Okay.
but it's
Oh,
wonderful.
And some of the other ones that are not just around the U.S.
We're going to the Mexican Riviera, the Caribbean, Panama Canal, Mediterranean.
The one I saw on the schedule was to Rome.
Yes.
Oh,
That would be
just
very
think how
fun.
much fun that would be if the quilt clubs and the large guilds all would get together and come, and the ship can hold that many.
Absolutely, they can. And then we can do shore excursions and see all the shops and all of the techniques.
shopping.
Well, while we're at sea, that's when we'll teach the quilting classes, and then when we're not at sea and we're on shore or at shore, we'll play.
And shop.
that would be so
Exactly,
neat.
and eat. Lots of that. It'll just be lots of fun. And the cruises are so relaxing. You can bring your family, and while you're quilting, your husbands can go do the shore excursions, go fishing, do whatever they
I got
want to
excited
do.
just looking at the plan of all the places that we're going to go over the next 5 years. That's just exciting just thinking about it.
No, a lot of places I've never been.
I haven't either. Panama Canal. Oh boy, I can't wait.
And Quilt Central will be right there filming it the whole time.
Oh, I am so excited. Well, I hope you will check us out on quiltcentraltv.com, where all the additional information for these cruises.
Thank you, Janie, for inviting me to share with your friends how I make some of the beautiful fabric that goes into quilting. Today, I'm going to show you how I stamp on a piece that I have created using Dynaflow and salt to get this wonderful background for my stamp. And I use Lumiere. It is a thick metallic paint, and I spread it onto a stamp that I have created, cutting out a piece of foam and putting it onto a block of wood. When you stamp, you need to stamp on your fabric on something soft. So use a piece of batting or a couple layers of paper towel will do. Okay, now I have the Lumiere on my stamp, and I am going to press down hard onto the fabric. And there I have my fish stamped. Then you can do it again. Stamping is lots of fun. It adds so much more to your background fabric that you have already created, and it's just easy to do. These stamps I make with scissors. The foam is just easily cut with scissors, and then I use the foam that has a sticky back on it, and it goes right onto your block of wood or piece of styrofoam, anything to give it a solid back. And now I have my fish jumping in the water. And this can be used in a quilt. Put on some lattice pieces, make a quilt out of it, a wall hanging. It's also wonderful on wearables. If you're making a vest, you can actually create the whole vest and then stamp on top of it.
Quilt around the clock. Visit the Quilt Central website at www.quiltcentraltv.com for more information on this program.
Welcome to Quilt Central.
Where we celebrate quilting and everyday living.
And everyday living.
We are so excited to tell you about the Quilt Central quilting cruises.
Yes, and our cruise. There's a big motorcycle, and that's what I was thinking about with the big motorcycle. And boy, are we excited. Our cruise planner, Janine, I'm so sorry, I couldn't spit your name out.
Quilt Central is made possible in part by Jacquard Products, committed to meeting the needs of artists. Janome America. Janome, because you simply love to sew. Fairfield Processing Corporation. We care for your quilts. A1 Quilting Machines. A1. Precision Quilting Machines. OFA, the original rotary cutting system. Sulky of America, makers of decorative threads, stabilizers, books, and iron-on transfer pins. Now you can celebrate quilting in your everyday living. To purchase a quilter's beginner kit, you may call toll-free 1-866-PADUCA or visit www.quiltcentraltv.com.